Hey guys, welcome to join the live stream. This is Jessica live from Beijing, the capital city of China. And this kind of like special series is about the trending topics in China. And we invite scholars, experts, and entrepreneurs basically discuss about the certain topics that related to China, related to global issues. So for today, for this episode, we're going to discuss about the changes, the transformations in China, especially for people, for expats who has been living in China for over like 20 to 30 decades. Okay, so joining me today, I have two guests online. Joining me today, featuring Fernando Munoz Berno, also known as Gao Fei. He is an entrepreneur and vlogger from Colombia, and Brian Linden, a founder of Linden Center and traveler from the US. Great, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks, Jessica. It's my
Yes.
honor.
Thank you, Jessica.
Okay, so please, I would like you guys to have a short, brief self-introduction first.
Okay.
How about like
All right.
Gao Fei first? Yeah.
All right. Well, my name is Fernando. My Chinese name is Gao Fei. I'm a Colombian entrepreneur. Basically, I am a language professor, and I've worked in China for the last 20 years. In my time here, I have started different businesses and different endeavors. And right now, I am doing something that I've always wanted to do. I'm semi-retired now. I just turned 50. So I decided to travel around China in an RV trailer and document all the things that I haven't seen in my 20 years in China. When you have a business, you're kind of like you sit down in an office and you work, and you don't get too much time or opportunity to travel around the country. Well, that changed since last year. We've been all over the country and we still have to go. So that's me, content creator and entrepreneur. Thank you very much for having me, Jessica. And well, we'll talk more as the show goes on.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for joining me. Okay, so how about you, Lyndon?
My name is Brian Linden, and thanks again, Jessica, for having me. My name is Brian Linden. I'm from Chicago in the United States. The first time I came to China was 1984, and I played a leading actor in a movie in Beijing before moving on to CBS News. Those early experiences, those 3, 4 years in the 1980s transformed me. And ever since then, really my focus has been on trying to enhance the story, tell the story of China to the outside world. I have been a journalist. I was a PhD student at Stanford. I've done things around the world. I've worked in 80 countries, but China has always been home. So in 2004, we developed our first site, which is a social enterprise. It is a hotel in a protected building in Yunnan. And ever since then, we've opened 5, 6 more and are working on similar projects.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for joining me today. And thank you that I have met you like just for last week, right? In Beijing.
Yes, I'm now in Nanjing. Fernando is in my home right now, so he's in Yunnan. I usually live in Yunnan. I'm now in Nanjing as part of a 6-week book tour. So my new book came out with Zhongxin 出版社, and I am now doing talks around the country for the next month and a half.
Yeah. Well, as I've mentioned that for today's topic, that will be China's changes or transformation. And because that I do believe that China's transformation has been one of the most remarkable economic and social stories of the past few decades. And a lot of people from abroad come to China to study, to work, and live. And as you guys, I would looking forward to exchange ideas with you guys because you have been living for Gao Fei has been living in China ever since 2000. And for Brian, that would be off and on in China ever since 1984. So that is really a long time. And to be honest, that even older than my age.
Oh,
So
thank you. Thank you.
yes, so that would
Now
be
we know.
I would be interested that why which part of China is most attractive to you guys that kept you living for over 20 years here?
Fernando, you want to go first?
Sure. Look, for me, it was a matter of we were talking earlier in preparation, right, Brian, that Colombia has a very peculiar situation, and it's difficult to live there because of violence and crime and all the things that we all know about Colombia. So a lot of people look forward to being able to explore opportunities in other countries. I had taught in America and I had taught in Colombia, but in all those places, I spoke the language that people spoke. So for me, I wanted to go to a place where I didn't speak the language, so I would challenge myself as a teacher. And I was looking at Asia. Japan, there's an issue there because of my passport. They wouldn't hire you if you're not from an English-speaking country. There was also Thailand, which was absolutely beautiful lifestyle, and I was really drawn to go to Thailand. And then there was China, where there were tons of jobs and the money was actually decent. So that was the first thing that brought me to China, the fact that I would be in Asia, I would be challenging myself as a teacher, and the money would be good, and I would be continuing my career. I was working at a university in Colombia, and I came to work at a university here in Xi'an, Fangyu Daxue, in the year 2000. And since then, it took only a couple of years for me to know that this is the place where I wanted to develop my professional life. This is where I wanted to stay. I find it hard to tell you exactly what it was. I decided to start my company in 2005, and there was a project in 2006 that I did, because I also do consulting, in which I had to help the local government to participate in a bid to the United Nations IFPRA, which is the International Forest and Recreational Parks. It was a competition among cities around the world, and they needed a language consultant. So they hired me. That entailed going to every single district and town and department of the city. And it was an eye-opening experience for me to see and understand how much effort, how much care, how much time, how much vision goes into running a city the size of the city where I'm actually an honorary citizen of since 2011, Dongguan in Guangdong. So that, to me, something clicked, and I'm like, it's amazing what they do. It's amazing how they do it, and so few people appreciate these efforts and everything that it takes to run a city properly. And that's it. I just fell in love with Dongguan. I fell in love with the city, and I just wanted to give back as much as I could to contribute to the city that had welcomed me 20 years ago, 23 years ago. So for me, I just saw the opportunity of fulfilling, of living a life that could be very beneficial to my career, and you can make a difference. That's what I felt. It was the opportunity to make a difference in the lives of people through the work that I do, which is language teaching. And that's it. I never left. My heart is here. And now whenever I say home, I'm talking about China. I'm not talking about Colombia anymore.
Okay, I would say that your like unique experience with Chinese people, with China, that kept you here, right? And the
Yeah,
love for the
it's
country as well.
one of the videos that I made a few years back is one of the things that I appreciate of China, and that a lot of people don't understand, is the freedom from fear. This is something that a video that went viral, and it's true. You live in China and you don't fear for your property, you don't fear for your life, you don't fear nothing. It's and people don't understand it. When you come from a country like Colombia, you do understand it. So that's living the way we live here in China, it's so, everything is so gratifying. You get to experience life more and enjoy life more without being worried and concerned. So that's a huge factor for me.
Got that. Yes. Thank you for sharing. And how about Brian? I know that you have been you've been traveled to almost over 100 countries and regions, right? Then why China? What kept you here for over 30, off and on for 39 years, 38 years?
Well, Jessica, initially my introduction to China came through a scholarship offered to me by the Chinese government. So in 1983, I was a night school student. I first went to community college. I was a carpet cleaner and trying to get myself through school. And the Chinese government, I saw an opportunity, scholarship opportunity to come to China. I wanted a change in my life because the direction I was going in the States was not so, maybe not so optimistic. And this Chinese government gave me that scholarship. So I arrived in 1984. I'm forever grateful that they gave me that scholarship. Upon arrival in China, I was immediately recruited to be an actor. And then I transferred over to CBS News and had an opportunity to interview China's leaders, you know, cultural leaders, whatever. I traveled around the world after leaving Stanford and had a chance to go to so many countries. And I found that the understanding of China, and in some cases, even the curiosity, you know, in learning more about China was lacking. And when I would travel to a country in South America and Africa, wherever, often they would be so happy to hear about my hometown of Chicago because of Michael Jordan or whomever, but they would have they didn't have as much interest in China, really kind of my adopted Shifu, you know, mentor. And I really wanted to address that. So in 2004, my wife and I gave up our jobs. We quit our jobs. We sold our house. Our boys were 5 and 8 at the time. And we came over and decided we wanted to come and create kind of um, almost like diplomacy, a company that in some way could tell the story, enhance the story through many different ways. And we searched for 2 years. We chose a building that is in Xizhou and Dali, and that became our first site. And the goal was to create a hotel that would serve as a social enterprise. And then we would do education, we would do various outreach, we would do media, and that has grown for us as a company. So the thing that attracts me, similar to what Fernando said, I think we all know the Chinese have a saying, you know, for 2,500 years, you know, 朋自远方来，不亦乐乎. Isn't it a joy to receive friends from afar? This seed of hospitality is within every Chinese person's heart. And I think all of us, Fernando and I, we have benefited so much from this kind of hospitality that we receive even after 4 decades in China. I still receive kind of this treatment that goes far beyond what we necessarily deserve. But it's just such a part of Chinese culture. And it's impossible for me not to try to tell that story to the outside world. I feel that it is a responsibility of people like Fernando and me to go out and tell that story. We don't have to tell them what to believe. We can just share real stories. And my book is filled with those kind of stories, 4 decades of interaction with common people, with government officials, with media, with cultural figures. I don't tell tell the readers what to think. All I'm doing is trying to present kind of some of these
Yes,
stories.
exactly. So it's more like we present the stories rather than persuading people to believe us, right?
Exactly.
We just show the pictures, the videos, the stories, and to present the real images, the real like the pictures to the outside world.
I believe,
Yeah.
Jessica, I believe that the understanding of China comes through a very small lens outside of China. It doesn't mean it's right or wrong that what they're telling, but what it is, it's just a very narrow lens. And often that represents 1%, maybe 2% of the country. 98%, 99% over the last 40 years is remarkable, the changes. And those are the things that I think we have to somehow just tell that story, keep telling it, we again, and that's what I love doing. I love
Yes.
sharing.
So try to be a great storyteller would be your reason. Is this the answer of the question of your answer?
I
What is
guess,
the reason?
well, I love just trying to, I think storytelling is so important. It's the basis of soft power. And I think that what we need is really to continue. People like Fernando and I, we really need to be out there and sharing, some of the real stories. People like you, Jessica, we have to share your experience and our experiences with you, with the outside world. That
Yes.
that story is very persuasive.
Exactly, exactly. Actually, I've asked a lot of foreigners in China about what do they think China is like before they came to China. Actually, a lot of people say I have no idea what China is like before I came here. And that is why, and that is what we want to do to let more people to know about, even that we may influence like 2% of the people, 2% of the world, that we want to just present the stories to more people,
I agree.
right? And yes, and the next
I
question,
I
I yes, sorry.
no, I wanted to point it out something that moved me to actually start this project of shooting this documentary and showing the stories of China, not in a book form like you, Brian, but in videos on YouTube and a large format documentary that will come in 2024. Uh, when you think about the Constitution of the United States, it says "we the people." I'd like to step back and think, what about they, the other people?
Mm,
So this journey is a journey about they, the other people, the ones that we don't know much about, the ones that we haven't heard about, the ones that are not in the limelight, the ones that go day to day through their work, plowing the fields or doing their labor, and they don't get much attention. That draws me like you cannot imagine. Like the people that do menial jobs and jobs that are not appreciated, like for example, cleaners, gardeners. I have a fascination with this kind of work because it is they, the people. They are the ones
mm.
who make China what it is, and I want to give them a stage. I want to showcase them. That's my biggest motivation. That's what drives me to go out into very far away places and shoot scenes and look at people, what they do, how they do it, and learn about the things that they do and share that with the Western world, with the outside world. Sorry, Jessica, you were going to move on.
Thank you for sharing your ideas. Yes, the key of like the episode would be about your stories in China and also the changes you witnessed in China. Basically, what changes have you witnessed over the past years in terms of like material and spiritual lives, and what do you think lies behind these changes? How
Should
about
I start? Fernando, should you start or?
No, sure, go.
Well, I guess all I can say is that over the last 40 years, Fernando and Jessica is, um, I've seen obviously this incredible change in the economic status of so many of the people. It's amazing. But what I think is so important is the government's investment in infrastructure, and that infrastructure is not solely the Gautier or the highways. It's education, it's hospitals, all of these things. I've worked the last 20 years in rural Yunnan, and what I see across the board is probably the word that I would describe it is really almost hope, HOPE. There's a sense that in some way, as they see these changes in the infrastructure, as they become more incorporated into the larger, market with China, there's this dream, their dreams get larger and larger. Most of the people in my small villages are sending their children to universities in neighboring provinces or in Kunming. There's when they have hospital, when they need to go to the hospital, you can be now from Dali, which used to take me 10 hours by bus to Kunming, you can now be there in 2 hours. So you can go in and do a dental appointment and get back to Dali in the same day. When the government invests in this kind of infrastructure and the improvement in your lives, it's very easy to feel increasingly confident about your future. And these families I see always is that there is a sense of you can start dreaming bigger than we were able to maybe 25 years ago. And this is what I love right now, is that optimism that I see in the most rural villages. This optimism is so, I find, really so seductive, so attractive. It keeps me going, that passion. And that's why I'm here. And that's why I want to stay here. And I just want to, in some way, be a small potato and make some kind of small contribution.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And how about you, Fernando?
Look, I think that one of the main things for me is realizing how important is the vision of the China that the government wants. They have a very clear idea what they want the country to be, and they just get to work and get it done. I think I've told this story before in my YouTube channels, but just to give you an idea, when I got to Dongguan, there was a 6-lane freeway called Songshan Hudada. And you could take that freeway, beautiful, perfect, I mean, absolutely high level technology of road. And there was absolutely nothing. There's 20 kilometers into nowhere, just farmlands or barren lands or nothing. And I remember talking to some of my local friends and like, what's the point? I mean, what are you doing? Why are you wasting so much money? I mean, there's nothing there that goes nowhere. No, but there are some projects. I'm like, nah, that Western mentality of no, if it's not every 4 years, it doesn't work. Today, Huawei campus is there. They are already building another factory, and it's become the high-tech center of the city together with Shenzhen. So you see, in 20 years, there was absolutely nothing going there. Today, they wish they hadn't made it into a 10-lane highway,
Yes.
sorry. So when I started to realize these things, and I'm like, we're in good hands. We're really in good hands. It's easy for the government and for the country to achieve whatever they plan because everybody's pulling in the same direction. Everybody is following the objectives. And when you see the improvements of infrastructure, as you were mentioning, Brian, and how life has improved for everybody. A very dear friend of mine, Jane, she's living in Tibet right now. When I met her, she had a motorcycle, a scooter, and she worked for the local museum. Today, she has a home that is worth millions, and she has a car, and she's retired, and she lives a lovely, lovely life. And she probably did not think that that would have been possible in her lifetime, but it was all done because the government creates the blueprint for people to make their dreams come true. There's a lot of people who confuse the idea of socialism as in handouts, but here in China, it doesn't work that way. It just, they build the infrastructure, they build the conditions that allow people to save, to invest, to profit, to develop themselves. I have an interesting video about how poor people in China are not really poor. I mean, most poor people
Mhm.
actually live in the countryside, but they have a home, they have sustenance, they have vegetables, they have chickens. So the poor in China are very different from the poor that we know in Western countries. So there is, I like the word that you mentioned, Brian, hope. Hope and vision come together and bring people um, to levels that they never thought they would achieve at any point, including me as a foreigner. I never thought I would be in the position that I am right now, with several companies, with well, achieving my dreams and achieving the goals that I've set for my life year after year after year. And it's all because of, well, the conditions are there for me, and the conditions are there for everybody in China. Um, so it's not just material, is what it does to the psyche of a country, to the minds of the people. They trust, they see, they believe that it is possible, and they go out and they do it. So it transforms the country, but not only in material aspects, but the spirit, the heart, the energy, the vibrance of a country. It's basically affected by all these things that we see changing.
Yes, I really like your stories, both of your stories, because I've heard about. I know that you are just back from the. I know Brian just back from Northeast Asia, about the railway, about the train, and also the interviews you've taken of that trip about the hope. So I think that from some perspectives, that I think the transportations, the public transportations, the infrastructures has highly improved people's lives in many aspects, right? And also for Fernando, that the vision, the blueprint, I really like your answers and perspectives about. I think I've watched your videos about the lens, about your stories, sharing about why they put this lands without no place in nowhere, and then now it's is within like a more like high-tech park, right? Yes.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
yeah, I really like your perspectives, is this kind of vision or blueprint into the future, the plans that has made people with more hope, whether now or in the future. Okay,
I,
so this kind of transformations, I believe, that has been driven by multiple factors, including like economic reforms, technological advancement, and massive investments in infrastructure or in education. So, in what kind of aspects of Chinese policy making have you guys been focused in? Whether like social insurance, employment, rural revitalizations, or digital economy.
well,
Okay,
If
from
I,
our
oh, sorry.
digital economy.
sorry.
Go ahead, Fernando.
Okay, well, if I may, I know that you worked a lot in poverty alleviation, and you're very interested in these kind of projects. Haven't worked in it, but I've had the opportunity to visit some of these projects and to learn about some of these projects. And uh, here's the thing: with China, when you hear about something, it's already old news. Let me explain. When people were talking about poverty alleviation in China, lift 800 or 600 or 700 million out of abject poverty, I was out there actually seeing the implementation of rural revitalization, which is like the next step, the next stage. It's something that people haven't heard about yet, but it's already being implemented here in China. One of the things that I absolutely love is how they're using technology in the fields, in the countryside, in the farms, helping the farmers and the growers and the producers to bring better produce to the markets, to connect their crop with the markets hundreds or thousands of kilometers away, with the internet, with monitoring systems, with science and technology, research into new forms of growing or new forms of uh, getting spicier chili, for example. This is something that I visited
Yes.
in Guizhou. There were some places where they monitor remotely plots of land that are 50, 100 kilometers away using the internet and 5G. So they can tell exactly what is happening to the soil, whether it's too humid or it's too dry or the pH is too high. They have CCTV cameras that can zoom in and look at one leaf and say, like, look, the expert, whatever he is, can actually tell the farmer, okay, you need to do this and this and this and this, and we'll check with you in 5 or 10 days and see how that's going. That is done remotely, and that improves the quality of the produce that this farmer brings to the market, thus enhancing his profitability, his income, and his life. And then there's the markets, the online markets. I keep saying to people that today all you need is a phone and a product. That's all you need, because you can tap into a market that's 1.4 billion size big. Anybody gets on Douyin and look at this. Oh, I could buy this watermelon from Xinjiang. This melon from Xinjiang. I could buy this chili from Guizhou. It doesn't matter where they are. People are now online promoting their products to markets that they never dreamt of achieving. They never dreamt of reaching. So this rural revitalization is fascinating to me. And is the second point about this is that it's not a one solution for everything. These are dedicated cadres that actually go into different places and say, what's your situation? What's your condition? What are the challenges? What can you do? What can we do? How can we work it out? And I've been in Yunnan for 2 months, and oh Lord, this is so big. The terrain is so different. Every situation, every condition is different. So that's why they have these teams working really with specific solutions for specific problems all over the country. To me, it's absolutely fascinating, and it drives me to learn more about those, because hopefully I could bring some of this, I could share some of this knowledge with people in my country, and somehow help my country from over here to bring some ideas over there. That's one of the things that interests me the most: poverty alleviation and rural revitalization.
Yes, I was just back from Xinjiang. I think last month, not last month. Today is March. Yes, on January. The same stories is about how technology, the innovation of technology investment is helping the locals, the rural farmers, to grow chili peppers. Yes, I think it's almost same in Xinjiang and Guizhou, and also the experts are helping the farmers every now and then to tell them and to see the crops and how the crops going, and to help the locals to improve their harvest as well. Yes, so that is one of the insights of you. I really like that. How about you, Brian? What are the focus? What are the policies that you have been focused in?
I've been trying, and I agree completely with Fernando, and I think he summarized this very, very well. We see that as well in rural China, especially in rural Yunnan, the changes in agricultural technology. Again, I always go back. I guess I really love the social aspects, and I always go back to the sense of hope, and it includes, for example, education. It includes medicine. We see now what, for example, Yunnan is paired with Shanghai. So they have to work together. And in some of the most rural communities, I will come across leading doctors, from Beijing Yuan, in Shanghai. And they're out here volunteering in the most remote areas of Yunnan. During the Yiqing, during the virus, one of our sites is in a small village of 600 people on a mountaintop. And the government again was sending up people to take care of the elderly, to make sure they were vaccinated. I don't think these stories are being shared with the outside world. In that small village, that same small village, a major university in China has just set up a technology center so that they can share education programming with the villages that people have to walk to that are up in the mountains, and they will come down now to an education site for both students, but then also for adults. So these are all attempts where I see China investing in that hardware and then giving everybody hope. Not everybody will participate, but that's their choice then. But those who are ambitious, those who want it, there will be a social pressure, in fact, within the communities to take advantage of these opportunities. And over 20 some years now in rural Yunnan, I have found that most families are so anxious to give their children opportunities, that will somehow take advantage and expand throughout the whole country so that they will be able to be a part of really a larger China dream.
Yeah, I
I,
think
I'd like
for
to add one thing about the doctors,
yes,
something that I experienced as well. These what do you call them? I anyway, there's internet
remote
hubs, right?
doctors,
There's
Yeah, exactly. Sure.
remote
uh,
doctors,
remote
or
doctors that
remote
actually go to the
medical
highest
service.
mountains. Yes, and they bring teleconference equipment. So basically,
Exactly.
they can actually consult with the experts in Beijing, in Shanghai,
Yes.
wherever they are. But there's
Mhm.
also a database of all the treatment, all the medicines, and all the checks and tests that have been given to any patient that can also be shared on this database. It's called the big cloud, right? It's transforming and changing the way healthcare is provided to people in remote areas.
Right.
I mean, older people in the mountains of Guizhou couldn't go to a hospital. It was just not possible.
Right.
It's too difficult. Now doctors can go to them, and a lot of the things that are done in hospitals or small clinics can be done at their own homes. That's that's just a beautiful story that again is not told out there. And perhaps the biggest issue is that if it's told, it's discarded. That's the sad part. Like, this is coming from China. We don't want to know, we don't want to hear. But
Mm.
we gotta keep trying. Sorry, Jessica.
Yeah. Yeah, before we move to that question, there will be the next question for you guys about the discarding thing. But yes, I would like to share what I would like to share is that especially for the last 3 years, because of the situation that the remote doctors, especially with the advancement of the technology, that doctors in metropolis cities can use the kind of like robotic arms and to do operations on people, whether if the doctors in Beijing and the patients are in another city, they can use 5G signals, they can use the robotic arms and to do the operations through 5G signals, through technologies. So that is also one of the things that I witnessed over these years, and that was really fascinating. And also for the online shopping thing, Fernando just said about the Douyin, about the online live streaming. That was I should say that was so convenient for us. You just screen on your mobile phone, watch the live stream, and you can have everything from across the country, from the rural areas, from the whatever you want, what wherever you want, whatever you want, and the delivery service is also very convenient as well,
The
right?
unsung heroes of China's
Yes.
economy is the Kuaidi guy.
Yeah. Okay. Exactly. I agree. I totally agree. Thanks for the unsung heroes. And also, as you guys have mentioned about the news part, yes, something that whenever the stories about China being broadcasted to the outside world, the news are not news anymore. So, so for your livings in China for the over like the past decades, what is the biggest rumor you've heard about China, and what do you think about it? And how does the Western media and Chinese media frame you?
Oh, wow. What do you think? You want to go first, Fernando?
I
Yeah,
got it on the
or
tip
you
of
can
my
say
tongue.
that.
Look, the democracy. But the consultative side, the listening, the delivering, the devising solutions for the problems and the issues that people have is the other half of democracy. It's looking after your people, looking after their hopes, as you mentioned, looking after their issues, their problems, solving those issues and problems. That's a huge part of democracy. Now, it does not mean that leaders are not elected. Leaders are elected, but in a very different way. They are elected based on a meritocracy, on a track record. They look back on what they have achieved, what they have done with their responsibilities that they have been given at this level. And if they have performed and if it's satisfactory, okay, they get to move to the next level. It's very different from other countries where basically people run on promises and people are elected on promises, or people are elected on attacking the other side and pointing out their faults, their flaws and whatever. So it's so counterproductive because they pull from this side and they pull to this side, and the people in the middle get nothing. It's so different here in China. So yeah, I mean, there are tons of articles that have been written about what democracy really is here in China and how it's just different. But the most important thing is that it's a democracy that delivers. And you can see it in the 20 years that I've been here. I've seen this system perform to levels that no other country has ever done in such a short span of time. So there you go. That's the biggest one. I could probably talk about others, but yeah, that's the one that it's always in the back of my head, as in people don't understand that there is democracy here and that it's perhaps a better working democracy than people might think.
Yeah, I think we need to broaden the concept of democracy, that there is not just one problem for one solution, as you have mentioned. So we need to like focus the country's own problems and issues and then to define the so-called democracy, not one for all, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Jessica, you know, echoing Nega Fernando's ideas, I've had the honor to participate in a lot of government meetings and consultative, you know, the consultative committees. Um, I don't think the outside world, I don't think many Chinese people understand how they, you know, the form of democracy that exists behind those closed doors. Often those meetings will take 4 or 5 hours. Often the governor will be sitting there taking notes from 50 different people in the communities, you know, who come in there and offer advice and say, we aren't happy with this. We need this done. And the governor will be sitting there and taking notes. They are sharing their concerns, the concerns of these very small regions. And usually there's immediate response to them. The governor is showing, you know, sitting there, it's amazing. And he is listening. And so this is something that I feel that I agree with Fernando, that many people don't understand this. Um, you know, in participating in that, I am shocked by how often direct some of the criticism and some of the conversations are. So this is something that I feel is not known to the outside world. I also feel like as a foreigner and you know, Fernando grew up in Colombia, I grew up in Chicago. I don't know, this sense of freedom that I have here because of this kind of I lack a fear. I don't know if the outside world can fully appreciate how freeing it is to be able to enjoy a whole country without fear of crime, without fear of violence. Um,
Mm-hmm.
this is something that I still cannot fully, I can't get used to, walking around Shanghai at 11 o'clock at night, and I can't help but turn on my Chicago, kind of mode and think I have to be careful. But in China, then I look and there are all these women walking by themselves. So this is something that I don't know how it's been done, but whatever has happened is amazing. And it is so freeing for all of us to know that we can leave our homes at any time we want, and we are not going to have any violent crime committed against us. So this is something that I wish the outside world could taste, the sense of freedom that comes with a safe environment. And China is providing that to all of us here.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you for your sharings about democracy and freedom. And this is something that I have done several interviews about this topic as well with Chinese people and with expats in China as well. So yes, I really like the ideas about how we understand the places, or how we understand the like the locals or the cultures, is that we need to be inside the place before judging, or before we speak something, or before we make any comments. The one thing that is what is really important is to be inside the culture, is to be chatting with the locals, and get to know more about the place, right? Okay, so yes.
One other rumor, if I
Mm-hmm.
may, is that you hear political leaders and pundits in Western media talking about the oppressed Chinese, or how Chinese
Mm-hmm.
are oppressed. And I just shake my head and I'm like, what are these people talking about? So you just go out on the street, you whip out your phone, and you see people dancing on a square. You whip out your phone and you see children playing in the playground. You whip out your phone and you show people doing car racing, motorcycle, BMX, street dancing, everything that you do out there in the West. The Chinese do it as well. The Chinese have the freedom to do it. They travel, they experiment with fashion, they music, art, creativity, just about it. What oppression are these people talking about? And it's so easy to debunk. Unfortunately, our voices are so small, and we
Yes.
are putting all this content in Western control media that is going to put a thumbs down on the content, because we don't want people to know how good Chinese people actually live. That rumor, give me ulcers.
They just believe in what they believed in, right? So what? Yes, actually, I did a street interview in Xinjiang, in Urumqi, the capital of Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region, in January. About I asked the locals on the street, why do they think the Western media said this kind of things to Xinjiang, to Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region. I got the answers, and most of them said because the Western medias, or because of the people are so afraid of Chinese faster development. Yes, this is what I've got
Mm.
on the streets of Xinjiang. They're so afraid of how China is developing so fast in different aspects, in economic development, technologies, and education and infrastructure. So I ask about the locals to give them a score on the scale of 1 to 10 to score their lives. I got scores like 7, 8, 9, 9.9. And I thought, where are the rest two scores? Where are the rest three scores? The answers will be like, I'm not satisfied with my own self. I need to work harder. I need to gain more money. I need to spend more time with the family members. So I really like the answers that I've collected on the streets of Xinjiang. That's really like the hope, right? Yeah, I really like the topic that Brian brought up today is about the hope. Yeah. Okay, so
I
that
love
is
that.
something that, yeah, I really like. You can check out my YouTube channel to see the interview.
Wow, good.
Okay. Yes. Okay. So I know that both of you have been lived in China. You have been interacted with Chinese people for many times for such a long time. And also, Linden Center is Brian's attempt to create a more sustainable model for tourism development and heritage preservation. So this question is for Brian. And how do you see the Linden Center as a model of China's soft power? And the center also partners with, as far as I know, with universities in the United States and China to promote cultural exchanges and support experimental learning. Why do you think this kind of exchange is so important?
Well, I believe that when we started the center, our first goal was to take over a heritage structure and try to restore it. We knew that by doing that it would be much more challenging, more expensive to restore, and we would never be able to really replicate the comforts of a newly constructed five-star hotel. So we knew that by doing that restoration, we were going to have something else, a spirit that had to attract people. And that spirit is really what's outside of the building. It's the people of Xizhou, it's their cultural traditions. So what we tried to do is create a tourism model that in some way really highlighted the local and not just sold a bed or a luxury hotel room. And what we were hoping is that luxury was really defined more in having an indigenous experience, an authentic experience. We discovered that many foreigners like that kind of model. And after we opened, we were 75% foreign customers. Um, but what we wanted also more Chinese guests to come and re-explore the cultural roots and have different. So we slowly expanded, and we were able to create an education center as well, where we have schools from Shanghai, Beijing coming out here. We work with President Obama's girls' school, so they do their semester program out in the small village of Xizhou. These are America's leaders' children, and they are going out to a small village in rural Yunnan and spending their 17 years or 18-year school year in a small village. And what I hope that if somehow we could allow those young people to see China through the eyes that I'm seeing, Fernando sees, that in some way they would carry those experiences and those feelings maybe for this country into their professional careers, their next 50 years. These will be very influential people in the future. So these are all attempts to just provide more authentic interaction with China. And I am not telling them what to believe. I don't tell them they should think this, they should see this. All I do is present them with different stories and let them experience that. If they feel that's influential, and if that's changing their ideas about China, all the better. But this is something that I feel when they leave, the kids leave with tears in their eyes. I'm pretty confident that for the next 50 years, China has some believers or people who are always going to have a much deeper understanding of the richness of this country, not solely the economic richness, because they can experience that in Sanlitun or Haidian, but they're going to also have something that connects with maybe the 4970年, 4,970-year China, and not solely the recent 30 years of economic miracle. they are identifying with the kind of the wisdom and charm that has been passed down through so many generations in this country. So that's what we are trying to create. And again, my book, kind of why I did it, was just to summarize some of these stories of people just interacting with Chinese culture in an authentic way and how that has influenced their lives.
Yeah. And also the face-to-face, people-to-people communication, that is really matters to get to know more about different cultures and different ideas. We may from different places, we may have come from different backgrounds, different cultures, but I do believe that this kind of culture exchanges is really important for us to exchange ideas.
Jessica, just to add to that, it's the idea of soft power. And I do believe that, the West, America's soft power has been pretty successful. Whenever we think of maybe something negative about the United States, we also think about Mickey Mouse, or we think about Spider-Man, or we think about Kobe, or we think about Michael Jordan, or we think about Starbucks. When an American receives negative news about China, they don't have those same touchstones. They don't have a way of saying, oh, but China is also Jubajie. China is also Xianyang. So these are things that we need to continue to tell the story, so that when an American person hears a negative story, it also will be balanced with maybe 50 other stories that are sharing some of the positive things that are occurring in this country.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think yes. I didn't prepare this question for you guys. It's because you have been lived in China for so long. I usually ask this question for newcomers, like what comes to your mind first when you think of China? This is a question for newcomers. I got the answers like panda, the Great Wall, noodles, dumplings. Yeah. Jackie
I'll tell
Chan,
you what
Kung
my answer
Fu.
was 20 years ago. Kung Fu.
Kung Fu,
Yes.
yes, Kung Fu, Jackie Chan, Hutongs. These are the answers that get to know more about China. And recently, that will be more like the Winter Olympics, the bird's nest. Yeah, these are the new answers that I've got recently. Okay, so this question would be for Fernando, that I know you have been working with multiple government programs since your arrival in 2000, and I watched your videos as well. You shared about your understandings about working with the working with the government programs. So what impressed you the most when cooperating with Chinese people?
All right. I think that I have to go back to the original answer of vision. They know what they want, and they just work hard on executing that vision. There's a strategy, and there's steps, and everybody pitches in, everybody contributes, and everybody does their part on achieving those objectives. To me, is one of the things that I appreciate the most, and I've said in some of my videos, is I'm a flower guy. I love flowers. For me, flowers are, I mean, heaven here in Yunnan, I have to say. But before I left Dongguan in 2021 to do my tour, I thought that, oh, the flowers in Dongguan are just absolutely phenomenal and so beautiful. I want to talk about the determination that it takes to create spaces as natural reserves. Land in China is one of the most bountiful resources for development. You can build malls, you can build shopping centers, factories, but to have cities mandate, like in my city, huge amounts of green areas that will never be developed. They are natural reserves in the center of the city. Dongguan. And the more I travel, the more I see places like this. I went to Jingdezheng, and as soon as you get out of the highway, you're like, wow, there are not too many tall buildings. That's a mandate. They dictate that you will not have tall buildings so that people can enjoy the views and then the breeze and whatnot. You don't think about these things. So there is a deliberate decision to protect things that are intangible. When you create a beautiful park and a beautiful space, you should watch my video called Green
I
Corridors.
will.
Question that I ask is, what is the return on investment? What is the return on investment on the millions and millions of renminbi that people spend on decorating and putting flowers and arrangements under a bridge where people drive at 80 kilometers an hour? What's the return on investment? The well-being of people.
Yes.
That's it.
And the
That's enough. That's all that matters. And that's so gratifying because it's so different from what I experience in my home country and other countries where you travel. The well-being of people, it's put on a pedestal, and you can see those little things that are done mandated in cities so that people have a good life, a good experience, a good environment to develop and to prosper. Cooperating with officials has opened my eyes to how important that is here in China, and just makes you wish government in my country would have a fraction of that dedication and that determination to look after our people.
Thank you. Thank you for your sharings. And here comes to the final question for me. What are your guys' future plan, and what advice do you have for younger generations who hope to contribute to more international cultural exchange? Are you like planning what are your future plans?
Well, for us at the Linden Center, we will continue to grow. We currently have seven different kind of projects, 7 sites. We are doing projects right now in the Nujiang River Valley, and we also are doing things up in the Tibetan Plateau, in Shangri-La. Our goal is just, for my goal though, really what I want to do is continue to really do this cultural diplomacy. I really want to encourage more people-to-people interaction. The American people are not our enemies. And I am not an enemy of China. I love this country, but I'm also very proud to be an American. I don't see any conflict with that. And I believe there are many Americans who really want to embrace a closer relationship with China. So, and also I feel that often the criticism that comes from the States, I worked for CBS News. I sometimes feel that we in China should maybe be above that. We should not take it so personally. Americans criticize themselves more than anyone else. That's part of the job of a lot of Western media. So sometimes I feel that I see stories quite a bit that are quite flattering about China in Western media as well. So I feel that I don't want to hold any journalists. I know the journalists field very well, and a lot of journalists. They are never going out there purposely trying to attack China, but they are going out looking for story angles. And often in the West, that means some form of criticism. So I feel that, please, let's try to go above that and maybe realize that in some way we have many more commonalities than we have differences. And I just want to continue to push and tell stories. And again, not tell people what to think, but just share the realities of China, just like Fernando is doing, and let people make their own decisions. I'm very proud to be a part of China, and I will stay here. My personal future, is my wife and I would like to stay here as long as the Chinese people welcome us.
Yes. How about Fernando? What is your future plan, and what what advice you would like to give for younger generations?
Look, for us, we started this project, Are We There Yet? Project, um, uh, as a 3-year plan. The idea is to make a documentary by October and release it on October 1st, 2024, to celebrate the 75th anniversary of China. It's like a present from me and my wife to China. That's what we want to do. So we still have a lot of ground to cover before that. Unfortunately, 2022 had us not moving as fast as we would have wanted because of COVID and a lot of restrictions. But this year we're moving a lot faster, covering a lot of material, covering a lot of the things that we wanted to cover. So we're very hopeful that we will make it on time by 2024. And I like what Brian was saying about this diplomacy. I found that I would love to play a role in bridging Latin America and China. A lot of the content that, not a lot of the content, but all the content that I create is in English. But the amount of people in Latin America that speak English, it's limited. It's not that, they're not that many. So I really hope that after this project is finished, I could find a way to become an ambassador, to become a bridge, a link between the cultures of Latin America and China, by explaining to people in their own language what they don't know, what the misconceptions are, or just to share the stories and the experiences of the Chinese people that they've never heard of. Again, that is a little bit out there. Still have 2 years to go, but that's what I'm hoping to do. It's there are some things in the works. There's some conversations that have been had, but this project right now takes priority, and that's what I told the people who
that's going to really be really enhance what I feel is China's soft power and the way it's reflected to the outside world. So that's what I would love to see on both sides.
Yeah, I think I've asked you, Brian, I think back in Yunnan, is which decade would you like to travel back to? Do you remember the question? Since you have been related to China for 40 years, that which decade would you like to travel back to? I really like your answer. I do remember the answer from you is you would like to travel to the 80s, because that is where everything started. The hope is where the hope is where the hope was. And of my parents' generation, of my grandparents' generations, they have been worked so hard to try to achieve their goals. So I really like your answer
And a
of
little
that
bit
question.
of that, my answer was obviously tied as well to the to my personal experience here. And I myself, coming from a fairly humble background, I identified very closely with the hard work, with the grit, with the hustle that I saw among the Chinese people at that time, because I too had to be that way. And I learned so much from those early experiences, from my Chinese colleagues and friends. So yes, I agree. The 80s were a very special time, but right now, there's never been a time in Chinese history that has been probably as comfortable so this is something too, I feel that right now, life in China is so nice and so comforting. I mean, it's really quite easy now. And I don't know the difference between the yingzuo, the hard seats in the old trains, and taking a high-speed train like I did today from Beijing to Nanjing. I don't know if I want to go back, to be honest, Jessica.
Yeah, I got that.
uh,
Yeah, I mean it's about the spiritual thing, about the hope, and everything is under construction and everyone is working their best, trying their best to achieve their dreams. This is something about like group working, is something about when you just start the startup time is
Yes, it's
what
true.
we,
It's true. It's true.
yes, is what we really I should say treasure back then.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So how about Fernando? What do you think? What are the lessons your country, basically Colombia, learn from China, and what can China learn from your country?
Um, I don't know if it's a lesson, but at least it's something that you hope could get done. I'm gonna very quickly tell you a story. Since before I was born, there had been talks of building a tunnel in one of the three mountain systems that connects the Pacific coast to the central area of the country and therefore to the Atlantic, something that would be extremely beneficial to the economy, to tourism, to transportation, to everything. Since before I was born, that tunnel that would be about 13 kilometers or something like that has been discussed, and I just turned 50 and still hasn't been built. So when you travel in a place like China and you see tunnel after tunnel after tunnel after tunnel after tunnel of the best quality ever, you're like, why can't we have this in Colombia? You imagine what is the mountains and ranges, or the area is called La Linea, or the line, because every car has to follow in a line, because just climbing up the mountain to 3,000 meters and then going back down. It takes an hour and a half. If you build a tunnel that's 13 kilometers, you're done in 20 minutes. So what does that do to the economy? And we don't have the fortitude. We don't have it. I don't we could get help from a country like China. Jiang Zemin said it about Latin America, and I would apply it to Colombia. Uh, if Colombia pays attention to corruption, education, and investment in infrastructure, there'll be no stopping Latin America. There'll be no stopping Colombia. And that's one of the issues that we have. Can we learn it? I don't know. Is there a desire to learn it? I don't know. I just wish we would do things that could propel our own prosperity without need from well, bad influences like drugs and things like that. We could do so much good by building our country and propelling it forward. So I wish we could do that. That's it. I mean, you drive around China and you're like, why can't we have this in my country? It's what I wish we could have back there.
Okay, great, thanks. Thank you for your understandings and sharings. I think yes. Okay, so yes, there is another question that I would like to ask is about what is the, I'm personally very interested, is what is your favorite Chinese habit you learned after moving to China?
Wow, interesting question. Okay,
I can think of like two or three.
please, you go first then, Fernando.
I actually made a video called 5 Things About China that just blew my mind. One of them is how you close bags at the supermarket. I've never seen that anywhere in the world. Let me get a bag and I'll show you what I mean. Like, okay, this is not a plastic bag, but here's to show you. So if I go to my country, right, what we do is we just make a knot, right? This is how and this is hard to carry, and this is hard to whatever, right? But in China, I don't know if you've noticed this, Brian. I'm sure you have. What you guys do is so special. You grab this loop and you grab this loop here and you do this. And this is so easy to carry, and it will never be open. I never close a bag the way I used to, only the Chinese way. 加油. This is so good. This is so easy. I'll never go back to the other way of closing bag.
Yeah, I know this. I know this, but yeah, this is so Chinese. This is so Chinese style. I like that. Yeah, whenever we go to the supermarket, we close like this. Yeah. Okay. Exactly. Okay. So how about you, Brian?
That I think that I've incorporated some of the, I was very interested in Chen style Taiji Chuan. And I'm very interested in martial arts. And I have to say that my whole style, my whole personality has become a little bit softer in the way that I approach any type of conversation, friendship, interaction. No longer am I as direct. I find that I can probably achieve more by being a little bit softer. And I feel that this is something that has made me a much better person. And I think that my wife, I think that everybody around me, my children would say that this is I am a much better husband because of that. So this is something that I've really enjoyed through martial arts here in Asia and the things that I have learned in China. In fact, I learned Chen style Taiji Chuan where I am right now, started it in Nanjing in 1987. So this is a place where I first started to study it.
Okay, sorry to interrupt. I think it's because of some signal problem that we need to restart the last question. Yeah, because of the signal part.
Okay, my question or Fernando's?
Sorry. What? We need to stop and wait the headquarters to. Okay, we need to stop for a moment and to let the headquarters to deal with the equipment thing, and we can start with the 是从哪儿开始？
You want to repeat? Whose answer do you want to repeat? Mine or Brian? Was mine okay, or do you want to do it again?
Is because of I think we should start the future plan. Is it from the future plan?
Okay.
That we lost the signal. 凯撒，我们是从刚刚哪个部分开始？最后一个问题哈。
Okay.
Okay, I think we can re-film the last question about the future plan and what advice do you have for the future generations who hope to contribute to cultural exchanges, and then 凯撒，我们应该是从最后两个问题，对吧？我记得是最后两个问题。OK，好，那我知道了。小光，你最后监看的是到哪里卡了？刚刚哪一个环节是有卡顿的？
我发你那个微信了。
有这个啊。Sorry, guys.
No problem. We got it.
Let's see. Okay. I got that. Yes. I got that. Sorry, guys. I think it's because of the signal problem that we need to refilm the last two questions. I will start with my final question. Is everything ready? Okay, sorry guys.
So
Yeah, we start
what question that again? I forgot what we said.
I will ask you
Sure, let's take it.
as you heard it for the first time. Sorry.
Okay. Do you remember, Fernando, what we said?
Never mind, never mind.
No, because I'm
I just
worried
remember that I
don't
said
know.
something that came out so good. Something that came out so good. I'm like, I don't think I can say it again. I'll figure it out.
Sorry.
I'm just worried that we may repeat what we said in another question or something, you know? I can't
Sorry.
remember what we said.
Okay.
Let them
Okay.
edit. They'll do the cutty.
Yeah,
Okay.
we will cut this part.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Okay, count down. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Count down again. Okay, here comes to the final question from me. So what is your future plan and what advice do you have for younger generation who hope to contribute to more international cultural exchange? Okay, so let's start with Fernando.
Okay. Well, I'm in the middle of this project that I started in 2021, which is called the Are We There Yet project. The idea is to travel around the country in an RV trailer that is pulled by an electric vehicle. There's so many things that are unique to what I'm doing. Number one, pulling an RV trailer with an electric vehicle is a challenge, and it's of interest to a lot of people. Because, well, a lot of people don't know how good the infrastructure is for electric vehicles in the country. So that's one thing. The whole idea is to shoot a documentary that showcases the people and the traditions and the culture of China in every single area. So we started in the East Coast and we went up. We were stopped because of COVID limitations, but we need to do that. But the original idea was to make a heart shape and to finish this documentary by October 1st, 2024, to celebrate the 75th anniversary of China. That's kind of like my personal present to China and a show of gratefulness for everything that it has allowed me to achieve in the country. So that takes me to 2024. Now, when I started doing this work, I was approached by some people who are interested in working with me as kind of like a bridge between Chinese media companies and Colombian media companies or Latin American media companies to provide information in a language that they understand from a perspective of a foreigner. This is something that I'm very interested in doing. I really want to be that person. I want to be that person that delivers the things that people can grasp and understand about China, that they don't understand, that they have been misled about. So this is what is going to happen. The approach is there. I told them, like, look, this particular project that is just my own pet project, self-funded and everything, it takes me until 2024. Let's talk about that work afterwards, and they were very keen to revisit this after that time. So that's what I'll be doing until 2024, and afterwards, hopefully, I'll assume that role and continue to showcase China to the world, but in a different language, this time in Spanish, because most of my content is in English. So that's what I'll be doing. So, yeah.
And the advice for younger generations?
Oh, yeah, sure. Look, this is something that's a little bit concerning to me. Um, when we look at how we are developing in society, I see a loss of values, a loss of traditional values that have brought us here, that have created the society that we have, and that is something that worries me a lot. This whole idea about bling bling and then doing things fast that are not going to last, thinking that everything that shines is gold. uh, Work on yourself, work on your own skills and attributes, and become the better version of you that you can. And something that has driven me since I became an adult is try to be a giver more than you are a taker. That's my advice. That will bring all of us together, up to upper levels of development and stability in society. So yeah, those will be the three things that I recommend.
Thank you. Thank you for your answers. And also about Brian, what is your future plan and what are the advice you have for younger generations who would like to contribute to cultural exchange?
Well, we as a company will continue to grow in China, and we are doing projects now in even more remote areas that will have a very strong social component in on each of those projects. I believe that what set us off on this journey, my wife and I, is really that idea of cultural storytelling and the idea of cultural diplomacy, people to people diplomacy. That was needed 20 years ago, and it's needed even more now. And I believe that we should continue to focus on that and do that through things like the book, through these projects, through promoting and hosting cultural programming. These are things that we will continue to do. And for the young people of China, really, I just want to remind them of how hard, in some ways, their parents, the same age as I am, the people who I grew up with, who I was here in the 80s, and watched them hustle and with hard work. And I really want them to realize that their parents have given them such an incredible foundation. Their parents had to work hard for economic growth. What I would start seeing is the Chinese youth starting to focus maybe on social values, on their hearts, what is important to them, pursuing things not solely for their pockets, but also for something that gives them some type of spiritual satisfaction. My life has been a life where I had opportunities to make money after leaving a place like Stanford. And what have I done ever since? I focused on education and cultural exchange. I do not regret any of that. My life has been so fulfilling, similar to what Fernando said, because of the opportunities China has given me. I do not gauge my success in terms of how much money is in the bank, but more in terms of these experiences and the sense of having made a contribution in some way, however small. So for me, I really hope that the younger people of China will be able to start to define their lives based on kind of what's here, what's in their hearts. And I think that's going to reflect a softer China to the outside world and really have a major impact on China's soft power influence in the outside, around the world.
Yeah. Both of you said about value, about soft power. So it's more like person to person communication and try to focus more on the cultural thing, on the inside thing, rather than just focus on like the money or the fancy, the bubbling things, the bling bling things, right? And try to focus deep in their dreams, in their goals, and in their what's inside the things, what are the insights of certain topics. So
Exactly.
actually, before we start the live stream, I've asked on my social media about the questions from the netizens. What are the questions that they would like to ask for you guys? I think I would like to pick one from our netizen on Twitter. The question would be like, there is one question from the netizen on Twitter. What lessons would their native country learn from China, and what can China learn from their country? Okay, I think you can have 10 seconds to think about this question, and Fernando can go, please.
I'll start with something very silly, but I think that China could learn how to make better soups. Our soups in Colombia are
Why?
so good. They're thick, they're tasty. They're here in China, most soups are so watery, and I miss them so much. We have in Colombia, I don't know if you had a chance, Brian, when you were in Colombia, to have a ajiaco, which is made of 7 different kinds of potato.
Wow.
That's so
Wow.
so that's one thing that I miss so much, and I'll have soup here in China, but I'm like, let's make some thick soups. Now, in terms of things that I think Colombia could learn from China is finding the will, the determination to do things for the country. And I'm talking about something very specific that I would like to share with you. In my country, since before I was born, there had been talks about building a tunnel in one of the 3 mountain systems that we have in Colombia. When the Andes enters the south of Colombia, is split into 3. So to go from a capital, Bogota, to my hometown, Cali, you would actually spend like 8 or 10 hours because you have to go down from 3,000 meters, go back up 2,500 meters, go back down, go back. It's insane. So there is a tunnel called, there's an area called La Linea, or the line, because the only way to travel is just follow one car after another. If there's an 18-wheeler, you stuck there for 2 hours until he makes it to the top of the mountain. So getting back to what I wanted to say, before I was born, there's talks about building a tunnel. That's a 13-kilometer tunnel that would reduce this hour and a half that takes to depending on traffic, right? That it takes to deal with this mountain to 15, 20 minutes at 60 kilometers an hour. That's all it takes. What would that do to the economy of the country, to the economy of the region? Because that connects the Pacific, the harbor, one of the biggest harbors that there is in South America, which is Buenaventura, to the Caribbean side of Colombia. Colombia is the only South American country with coast in both oceans, the Atlantic and the Pacific. That tunnel would change our country dramatically. Still not built. And when you travel around China, it's just tunnel after tunnel after tunnel after tunnel after tunnel of the highest grade. And I just wish and hope and think, why can't we have this in my country? Why can't we change the future of my country like that? The prosperity, the well-being of people like that. So it's not exactly a lesson, but it's just something I wish we had, that determination to do things for the country that just gets lost for whatever reason. It's sad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really like your answers. How about Brian? What lessons could like the US learn from China, and what can China learn from your country?
I believe that I echo also what Fernando just said. I believe that when infrastructure, these kind of changes in the United States, sometimes it's very hard to push forward as well. I think in more general terms, what I see that's happening in the United States is maybe as that we are starting to lose a solidarity, when we are starting to no longer have anything that brings us together in terms of our beliefs, maybe in democracy, in a political union. Sometimes I feel that our differences are starting to really dictate who we are more than our commonalities. And I feel that in the States, I think we could learn from China in the ability to retain this solidarity or a common feeling among people. But at the same time, I believe the Chinese youth could also learn, maybe like I just said in the last question, is really to start thinking with their hearts. starting to really go out there and starting to realize that their future should not solely be dictated by how much money they can make or by GDP growth, but more by a quality of life and maybe an influence on the outside world that goes beyond just solely monetary. China's 5,000-year-old culture is this incredible, you know, 知识宝库, you know, well, how do you say 知识宝库?
Treasure,
Resource. Yeah,
treasure resource.
and what I really feel that in some way is that we in China should be not solely flexing our monetary, you know, muscles, or we should be flexing some of this knowledge and wisdom that we have gained over this 5,000 years. There should be a time where China is 点亮 the world, enlightening, and you know, through our experiences. And this is something that I hope the young people of China will start to feel and start to show through their hearts. You know, I think it comes back to that sense that no longer should we define a successful life solely by how much money we made. And I hope that Chinese young people will have more kind of social freedom to go out there and choose the paths that they feel are best for themselves.
Yeah, thank you guys for the answers. I do believe that the goals or the main mission for us is that to be a good storyteller, to showcase the outside world about China. And also, if you are interested in China, if you are interested in Chinese culture, come to visit us, come to involve yourself into the culture, into the place, and chat with the locals, try local cuisine, and maybe try Chinese soup as well. I even don't know, can we buy 7 potatoes here in China? I might to try that as my next challenge, to buy 7 different kinds of potatoes in China next time. Yeah. And also, yes, this is
I'll make
something
you
that
one
we
when
really I will keep in contact with you, okay, and tell you my challenge, how this challenge goes. So the key is about culture communications, about involved into the culture, is about people to people communications. So thank you guys so much for having this live stream, for chatting with us, and do remember, for our audience, do remember to stay tuned to our live stream series, and there will be more topics coming from us. And if you are interested in China, interested in Chinese stories, do let us know. Okay, so I think this is the end of today's live stream, and I would once again thank you so much, Brian and Fernando, for joining me, and hope you enjoy your time. Okay, so
thank you, Fernando.
Thank you.
yeah, thank you
Thank
so
you, Brian.
much.
It's a pleasure to meet you.
Okay, so I would say goodbye and see you next time.